Hey, so you probably heard about the Apple problem, the taxes thing. I hate Apple for that. It's smart, but it's just wrong. It's not like India where the taxes go in the wrong hands. It's not right. What? What are you trying to say, man? Are we on? Are you? Nah, impossible. Shit, we are on. What is going on, guys? In this video I'll be kicking off a new series on my channel. It's gonna be how has it evolved. Now in this video we're gonna talk about how things have evolved, and in the first episode we're gonna talk about something really interesting, really interesting, that is video connectors. Now if you're not a nerd, you obviously have heard about HDMI or VGA, because those are some of the common video connectors everybody knows about, because those are something which we use daily. Even if you don't know VGA, you probably know HDMI, because there is nobody who doesn't know what HDMI is unless you live in a cave. Anyways, let's get on with it. Now the first video connector is going to be composite video. Now composite video is something which we see on our PlayStation 3s, PlayStation 2s, original PlayStations, Xbox 360 and the original Xbox, and even in some TVs. Composite is something which marked a history for video connectors, marked a starting point for video connectors. Composite had a resolution of 480p. Now 480p was something which was a standard until the 90s, where VGA launched, which was 720p, and in the late 19th century, DVI came out. Now DVI and VGA is something which we are going quite ahead of, so we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about composite. Again, really common, 480p, that's how it works. The next is S-Video. Now S-Video is really interesting because it is still used nowadays in computers. In fact, my father has a laptop in which S-Video is again a video output. So S-Video is something which we see, which probably even you have in your computer. So just check out. You can see somewhere in the screen how S-Video looks like. So if it looks like something, if you can just look at, and if you can just see in your laptop if there's something similar to S-Video. So still very common, still it's there, it's just no problem at all. S-Video was interesting because of its audio functionality. It connected audio and video together and merged it together. Now S-Video is something which was not famous because it didn't do that quite well. Now there is something known as gen locking. That means synchronizing audio and video outputs. So just forget about audio, videos, merging two and synchronizing two signals together fluidly. That is called gen locking. Gen locking is something which was improved further as time passed, but S-Video was not good with that. It was a 7-pin design, I believe, and it was very common for video connectors and whatnot. After S-Video came S-Cart. Now S-Cart, that is a nice name. S-Cart. S-Cart was launched by the British people. It was I believe a 21-pin design. I'll just check on my iPad because I don't remember this stuff. 21-pin design, which was 480i, or let's say 480p. S-Cart was very similar to S-Video and HDMI, we could say. S-Cart didn't become that much famous because it was a standard for British, and it was not that common around the United States, where a lot of computer building was happening by IBM, Apple. Those companies were evolving, and S-Cart was not becoming that famous. And another reason S-Cart was not famous because of its bulky behavior. 21-pin design was quite big, and you could not use it for computers and stuff like that, because it was just not practical, let's say that. S-Cart is again very similar to S-Video and HDMI, as I said before, because it merges two signals together. Now if you look at the chart in the screen of S-Cart, this is how the pin design is there. It is using alternate pins. If you can see like this, I don't know, it's somewhere in the screen, it's using alternate pins. So gen locking is done in a different way. That means there is no interference in the signals. So that is how S-Cart was done. S-Cart was good, but again, the British people didn't want to make it a worldwide product, so it was kind of in the European areas. So S-Cart was again a failure. After S-Cart came Amiga. Amiga Video is interesting because of one thing, that is gen locking. Now I'll just read this thing. Amiga had a connection known as DP23. Now DP23 was, I don't know if it's a connection, what it is, that properly I just don't know. It was known for its gen locking and the way it used to do it. Now gen locking was something which couldn't be easily done by anybody. So gen locking was not a big deal, like everybody knew what gen locking was and they could improve and improvise on it, just like Amiga. So after Amiga, a lot of big companies came, they did the same thing in a better way. So Amiga was a flop and a dead end. But Amiga was the first connector with the best gen locking solution, let's say that. Now Amiga was not that famous because of its refresh rate, and you needed two multi-sync monitors in order to in order to use Amiga. That was another way. It was a dead end, and a lot of people at that time, multi-sync monitor, it was not practical. People didn't have the money, so you gotta understand about that too. So Amiga was very interesting because of its design and gen locking features. That is 23-pin design with gen locking done in an amazing way. Then comes component video, which was, I believe, came in the 80s, I believe. Now component video was interesting because of its design. Again, PB, okay, PR. Y is for luma, that is luminance or brightness. PB is, let's say Y and P is same, that is luma is P and Y, and B is blue and R is red. So PY is luma. So it's like the color minus luma. That is how it works. Like Y luma, PB, that is B minus Y, and PR, that is R minus Y. That is how it works. It was capable of a resolution of 1920 by 1080. Component video, in my opinion, was a great thing, but it was not that famous. So it was something, I don't know what happened, but I was a big fan of component. But again, a lot of people didn't use it, so it was a dead end. Now we're going to talk about VGA. Now VGA is something a lot of people know. VGA had something known as a non-hot pluggable option. Now non-hot pluggable thing was something a lot of people liked. The reason they liked is that, I don't know why they liked it. A lot of people liked it at that time. As I've heard, I don't know, it's a placebo effect, but they think it's not hot pluggable, that means there's no interference. A lot of people believe that. I don't know why, but I believe it's a placebo effect. But again, that's how people in the 90s behaved. Now we're going to talk about something really interesting. I call it the modern classic trio. The modern classic trio consists of HDMI, DisplayPort, and Thunderbolt. But before we come to that, we're going to talk about DVI because it's one of my favorite video connectors. DVI was my favorite because of its design and its revisions. DVI was revised thousands and thousands of times until they came with a stable version. DVI is having mainly three components: DVI-A, DVI-I, and DVI-D. DVI-D is dual link DVI. DVI-I is single link DVI, and DVI-A is something I really don't know about. DVI was famous because of its digital environment and its resolution of 2516 to 1600. Okay, so the reason I like DVI, is because of its revisions and how many DVIs were made. The design and the engineering behind making DVI was quite amazing, and I really like it. It's just, I like it a lot. Let's talk about the classic trio. The modern classic trio. It consists of HDMI, Thunderbolt, and DisplayPort. Now all of these three connectors are having three different features, being similar in one way. HDMI, Thunderbolt, and DisplayPort are both capable of 4K. 4K resolutions are capable. With DisplayPort, you can go up to 8K. Even Thunderbolt, but not HDMI. HDMI is 4K only. One thing you gotta keep in mind, a lot of people are having this confusion. The confusion is that HDMI carries audio. That means it's not gonna be good with video. That means the maximum is gonna be 1080p. That is not true. HDMI can go up to 3820 by 2140, I believe. That is 4K. So it can go up to a good amount of resolution. So that is something which you gotta keep in mind. HDMI is also capable of carrying audio and also having internet bandwidth. So you can have audio internet, high resolution video, everything under HDMI. So it was good, and also and the reason it became very famous is because of its 3D functionality. It was capable of carrying 3D signals, which is again something quite big, and and at that time people didn't know that 3D was not going to be that famous in the future, but still 3D in 2003 it was a big deal. Okay, it was a big deal. So HDMI became very famous. Thunderbolt was launched in, I believe, 2011. Now Thunderbolt is not made by Apple. I will say it again. It is not made by Apple. The company's name, which a lot of people think it is made by, and it's not true, that the company's name is Apple. I'll say it again. Apple. It's not made by Apple. It is made by Intel. I'll say it again. Intel. 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 Okay, so the reason Thunderbolt is different from HDMI and DisplayPort is because of its bandwidth of carrying data, that is up to 10 gigabytes per second. That means you can transfer a full HD movie file in just 10 to 15 seconds. It's pretty fast. So Thunderbolt is having its own use, and it's quite famous. Thunderbolt is in some Haswell and Ivy Bridge monitor motherboards too. So Thunderbolt is not something which Apple only has. A lot of PCs are also having Thunderbolt, but the reason it's not becoming that mainstream is because monitor manufacturers are not implementing Thunderbolt, whereas they are implementing DisplayPort or DVI, dual link DVI. So Thunderbolt, I don't think it's gonna get that famous soon, but I like Thunderbolt a lot. But it's not made by Apple. Just keep that in mind, please. It's a misconception, and it's stupid. Nobody likes it. DisplayPort, on the other hand, was famous because of its backward compatibility. DisplayPort could do everything except VGA, and as it is said, DisplayPort is gonna replace VGA in 2015, as DisplayPort manufacturers say, which is cool. I still use VGA, but again, a lot of people are saying that's gonna happen, and you know, I don't believe that that's not gonna happen. Anyways, DisplayPort was famous again for its 8K resolution bandwidth, which was quite interesting. 8K, that's a lot. That's a good resolution. So just keep that in mind. So in my opinion, DisplayPort is gonna be first, and then it's gonna be HDMI, and then it's gonna be Thunderbolt. So that is how it's gonna evolve. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. This was a new series. I know it's the first series, and I'll try to make these episodes in a good amount of time, because it takes time. It takes time to remember. It takes time to sync everything. It takes time to edit. It takes time. It's not that easy. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, let me know in the comments, and I'll keep making these videos. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and stay tuned for the next episode of How Has It Evolved. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching.